Validation is routine setup before testing. Next, certification. Certification.
Welcome, everyone. In today's complete professional NDT training module, we are going to study Asnt Snt-Tc-1A 2024 edition, one of the most important documents for every NDT technician, inspector, Level 2, Level 3 candidate, QA/QC engineer, and certification coordinator. If you are preparing for Asnt Level I, Level 2, Level 3 company certification interviews, shutdown work, vendor audits, or refinery and oil and gas projects, this training is extremely important. In this session, we will cover scope and purpose of Asnt-Tc-1A, important definitions, NDT qualification levels, written practice requirements, training and experience rules, examination requirements, certification and recertification, practical exam requirements, common mistakes, interview questions, scenario-based questions, and important exam-focused revision points. So watch this training carefully till the end because many inspectors confuse these concepts during exams and interviews. Let's begin.
First, understand one very important concept. Asnt-Tc-1A is not a mandatory code. It is a recommended practice developed by ASNT for qualification and certification of NDT personnel. This is one of the most common interview questions. Many candidates wrongly say Asnt-Tc-1A is a code or standard. No, it is a recommended practice. Now, another extremely important point. Who certifies NDT personnel? ASNT does not certify personnel under Asnt-Tc-1A. The employer certifies the individual. Remember this carefully because this question appears repeatedly in Level 2 and Level 3 examinations. The employer develops the written practice, controls the qualification system, conducts examinations, and issues certifications. Also remember, the employer may modify the guidelines in the written practice, but 4 things cannot be eliminated: training, experience, examinations, and recertification. Very important exam point. Now let us study some important definitions. First, calibration. Calibration means comparing or adjusting an instrument against a known traceable reference, usually traceable to a national standards body. Now compare that with standardization. Standardization means adjusting the instrument using a reference standard to obtain a known reproducible response before or during testing. Many inspectors confuse calibration and standardization. Calibration is formal and traceable. Standardization is routine setup before testing. Next, certification. Certification is written testimony that the individual has satisfied qualification requirements. Now another direct exam question. Who is the certifying agency? Answer: the employer. And what is certifying authority? It is the person or position designated in the written practice to sign certifications on behalf of the employer. Notice carefully. It is defined by position, not by person name. This is another commonly confused interview concept. Now let us continue with more critical definitions. Experience means actual work activities performed in a specific NDT method under qualified supervision. And very important, organized classroom training hours cannot be counted as experience hours. Training and experience are completely different. Training imparts knowledge and skills. Experience comes from field work. Qualification means demonstrated skill, documented training, documented experience, and knowledge. Notice carefully, education is not included in the definition. Now another practical exam concept, detection rate. Detection rate is the number of flaws detected divided by the actual number of flaws present in the specimen. And false call means identifying an acceptable area as a defect. Too many false calls can fail the practical examination. Finally, Written practice. This is the employer's master certification control document. Every qualification and certification system is controlled through the written practice. Now let us understand method versus technique. Method means the main NDT discipline. For example, ultrasonic testing. Technique means a category inside that method. For example, A-scan, TOFD, PAUT, or thickness gauging. So remember, method is bigger. Technique is a subset. Now, limited certification. Limited certifications are Level 2 certifications restricted to specific techniques or applications according to employer needs. Next, outside agency. This is a company or individual providing Level 3 services whose qualifications are reviewed by the employer. And third-party agency means a supplemental workforce provider without an established written practice. Another important term is grading unit. During practical examinations, specimens may be divided into grading units for evaluating detection rate and false calls. Very important practical examination concept. Now let us study the 16 NDT methods covered under Asnt-Tc-1A:2024. This is another direct written examination question. How many NDT methods are covered? Answer the 16 methods. These include acoustic emission, electromagnetic testing, ground-penetrating radar, guided wave, laser methods, leak testing, liquid penetrant, magnetic flux leakage, magnetic particle, microwave technology, neutron radiography, radiographic testing, infrared testing, ultrasonic testing, vibration analysis, and visual testing. Remember, techniques exist inside methods. For example, UT includes PAUT, TOFD, and thickness measurement techniques. Let us understand the responsibilities of Level 1, Level 2, and Level 3 personnel. This section is extremely important for interviews and practical site work. Level 1 personnel can perform testing, carry out standardization, record results, and evaluate results according to written instructions. But Level 1 cannot independently interpret or report results. This is a major field mistake. Now Level 2. Level 2 personnel can set up equipment, interpret and evaluate indications, apply codes and standards, train Level 1 personnel, and prepare reports. But generally, Level 2 does not develop and approve procedures. That responsibility belongs to Level 3. Now Level 3 can develop and approve procedures, establish techniques, interpret codes and standards, train and examine personnel, and assist in establishing acceptance criteria. Notice carefully. Level 3 assists in establishing criteria. Normally, acceptance criteria are established by design codes or engineering requirements. And finally, trainee. A trainee should never independently conduct, interpret, evaluate, or report NDT results. Now we come to one of the most important documents in the entire certification system: the written practice. The employer shall establish a written practice for qualification and certification control. This document defines training requirements, experience requirements, examination requirements, responsibilities, techniques, methods, certification process, and recertification rules. Another direct interview question: who develops the written practice? Answer: the employer. Who reviews and approves it? Answer: the NDT Level 3. And remember, the written practice must be maintained on file and kept current. If the written practice is not properly approved, the certification system becomes non-compliant. Now let us study qualification requirements. One of the most important rules in Asnt-Tc-1A is training does not equal experience. Many candidates make this mistake. Classroom hours cannot be counted as field experience. Minimum 75% of required experience must be gained in the field. Now, Level 3 qualification can be achieved through 3 different paths: bachelor degree plus additional experience, technical or college education plus additional experience, or 4 years additional experience beyond Level 2. Another important rule: laboratory hours may count only up to 25% of required experience. Minimum 75% must still be field experience. Very important for audits and qualification reviews. One of the most heavily tested tables in Level 2 and Level 3 examinations. Table 6.3.1a. Candidates should memorize major methods like PT, MT, RT, UT, and VT. For example, UT Level 2 requires 40 training hours, 630 hours minimum method experience, and 1,200 hours total NDT experience. RT Level 2 has similar requirements. Also remember advanced UT techniques, such as PAUT, FMC, and TOFD, require UT Level 2 as a prerequisite. And additional advanced training and experience are mandatory. This section is directly used in certification audits and interview evaluations. Discuss acceptable training formats. Asnt Snt-Tc-1A recognizes multiple training approaches. These include instructor-led classroom training, personalized instruction, virtual instructor-led sessions, computer-based training, and web-based training. However, all programs must include sufficient examinations to verify understanding. Another important point: ANSI/Asnt Snt-Tc-1A may be used as the training outline source, and all training programs should be approved by the applicable NDT Level III. Even if outside training is purchased, the employer remains responsible for ensuring compliance with the written practice. Now, let us study examination requirements. All examination questions must be approved by the NDT Level III. Examinations are closed book unless reference material is specifically supplied. Now memorize the passing criteria carefully. Composite score must be minimum 80%. No individual written examination can be less than 70%. And practical examination must be minimum 80%. This is one of the highest frequency exam questions. Another important rule: no person can administer an examination to themselves or to their subordinate. And if a candidate fails, normally there is a 30-day wait period before re-examination, unless additional training is completed. Vision examinations are mandatory for all NDT personnel. Near vision testing requires the individual to read Jaeger No. 2 at a minimum distance of 12 inches or 30.5 centimeters. Natural or corrected vision is acceptable. But pharmacological agents such as eye drops are not allowed. This is a very common trick question in exams. Color contrast examination must be conducted initially and then every 5 years. And remember, certifications and vision exams expire on the last day of the month. Very important audit point. Now let us understand the difference between general and specific examinations. General examination focuses on the fundamental principles of the method. Questions are based on ANSI/ASNT-CP-105 topical outlines. Specific examination focuses on the employer's procedures, equipment, specifications, acceptance criteria, and applications. This is company-specific knowledge. Typically, the general exam has minimum 40 questions. Specific exam has minimum 20 questions. And both are closed book examinations.
Now let us discuss the practical examination. This is where field competency is evaluated. For Level 1, the candidate must demonstrate operation of equipment, perform testing, and record results. At least one flawed specimen must be examined. For Level 2, the candidate must select techniques, perform testing, interpret indications, and evaluate results. All discontinuities identified by the Level 3 must be detected. Another important point: the practical examination checklist must contain at least 10 checkpoints, and failure of a single critical checkpoint can fail the entire examination. Very important practical exam concept. Now let us study the Level 3 examination structure. The Level 3 exam consists of Basic Examination, Method Examination, Specific Examination, and Practical Examination. The basic exam includes questions related to Asnt-Tc-1A, materials, fabrication, and other NDT methods. The method exam covers principles, applications, techniques, and code interpretation. The specific exam focuses on employer requirements, and the practical exam may require preparation of NDT procedures. Another important exam point: a valid Asnt Level 3 certificate may fulfill basic and method examination requirements under certain conditions. Now let us discuss certification responsibility and records. Again, remember carefully. Certification responsibility always remains with the employer, even if an outside agency provides Level 3 services. Certification records must include name, method, level, experience, training, vision examination results, examination scores, certification dates, expiration dates, and signatures. Another extremely important rule: certification date is the date when the certifying authority signs the certification record, and the maximum certification validity is 5 years. Now let us study what must appear on a valid NDT certificate. The certificate must contain employer legal name, written practice reference, Asnt-Tc-1A edition year, full legal name of certified individual, method and level, limitations, certification dates, expiration dates, and signatures. Another important rule: the certificate must be fully completed at the time of signing. No blank spaces are allowed. If modifications are needed, a new certificate should be issued. Now let us discuss recertification and interrupted service. Employers may re-examine personnel at any time if technical performance is questionable. Certification validity is maximum 5 years. Recertification may be based on satisfactory performance or re-examination as determined by the Level 3. Another important requirement: the written practice must define rules for interrupted service. If personnel stop performing NDT for a long period, retraining or re-examination may become necessary. And if new techniques are added, additional qualification is required before recertification. This is one of the most confusing sections for candidates: termination versus reinstatement. When employment is terminated, certification is considered revoked. However, a new employer may recertify the individual under certain conditions. Now, reinstatement. Reinstatement means the same employer brings the employee back. No new examination is required if records were maintained, certification did not expire, and reinstatement occurs within 6 months. This is a direct written examination question. Many candidates confuse termination with reinstatement.
Now let us study the practical examination evaluation categories. The practical examination uses a checklist system. The highest weighted categories are detection of indications, interpretation of indications, and evaluation of indications. Evaluation alone carries 20 points. Another critical rule: maximum false calls allowed are 10%, and failure of any critical checkpoint results in overall examination failure. This is extremely important during practical assessments and employer qualification testing. Now we come to mock examination questions. These are very important for revision. Pause the video, try answering yourself, and then compare with the correct answers. Questions related to employer responsibility, training versus experience, passing grades, written practice approval, reinstatement rules, and total number of NDT methods. These concepts appear repeatedly in Level 1, 2, and 3 examinations. Now let us discuss common interview questions. Interviewers frequently ask, difference between calibration and standardization. Who develops and approves written practice? Whether training counts as experience. Responsibilities of Level 1, 2, and 3. Certification validity. And difference between termination and reinstatement. If you can confidently answer these questions, your interview performance improves significantly. Now let us discuss common mistakes made by inspectors. One major mistake is counting training hours as experience. Another mistake is believing ASNT certifies personnel under Asnt Snt-Tc-1A. Wrong. The employer certifies personnel. Another common confusion is calibration versus standardization, and many people misunderstand acceptance criteria responsibility. Level 3 assists, but engineering design codes usually establish criteria. These mistakes commonly cause failures during audits, interviews, and examinations. Now let us study real field scenarios. Scenario 1. A Level 1 inspector is asked to independently report results. Correct action? Refuse. Level 1 cannot independently interpret or report findings. Scenario 2. An employee returns within 4 months and certification is still valid. Can they be reinstated without examination? Yes, if all reinstatement conditions are satisfied. Scenario 3. Can classroom training hours fully count as experience? No. And Scenario 4. Even if detection rate is acceptable, excessive false calls still fail the practical exam. Very important field concepts. Now let us move to Level 3 Viva questions. These are deep technical and certification management concepts. You should clearly understand. Difference between third-party and outside agency. Employer certification responsibility. Laboratory hour limitations. Use of ASNT Level 3 certification. And grading unit concepts. These are frequently discussed during Level 3 interviews and certification audits. Asnt Snt-Tc-1A also references several important documents. These include NDT ASNT CP105, NDT ASNT CP9712, ASNT CP1, ASNT Policy G14, and ASTM E1316 Terminology Standards. As a professional NDT inspector or Level 3 candidate, you should be familiar with these references because they are interconnected in qualification systems. Now let us visualize the complete certification process. Step 1. Trainee. Step 2. Training. Step 3. Experience. Step 4. Examination. Step 5. Certification. And finally, recertification every 5 years. Remember, vision examination is mandatory before certification, and every step must be documented. In the NDT industry, documentation is critical. If it is not documented, it did not happen. This slide contains some of the most important numbers from Asnt Snt-Tc-1A. You should revise these repeatedly before examinations. Remember, 16 NDT methods. 80% composite score, 70% minimum written score, 80% practical score, 30-day re-examination wait, 5-year certification validity. Jaeger number 2, 12-inch distance, 10% maximum false calls, 25% maximum laboratory experience credit, and minimum 75% field experience. These values are extremely important for written exams and interviews. Now let us study limited certifications. Limited certifications are Level 2 certifications restricted to specific techniques. Examples include film interpretation, digital radiography interpretation, CT interpretation, and ultrasonic thickness measurement. These limited certifications must be approved by the NDT Level I and documented in certification records. Another important interview concept. Now let us understand practical examination performance metrics. Detection rate equals detected flaws divided by actual flaws multiplied by 100. And false calls occur when acceptable areas are incorrectly identified as defects. Remember the dual condition rule? Detection rate must be minimum 80%, and false calls must be maximum 10%. Both conditions must be satisfied simultaneously. Failure of either condition means examination failure. Now let us compare Asnt Snt-Tc-1A with ISO 9712 or CP 9712. Asnt Snt-Tc-1A is employer-based certification. The employer certifies the individual. But CP 9712 or ISO 9712 is a third-party certification system. There, an independent certification body certifies the individual. This distinction is extremely important during interviews and international project work. Now let us study some common field and certification problems. If certification expires, inspectors must stop performing certified NDT immediately. If written practice was never approved by Level 3, the certification program becomes non-compliant. If a candidate scores below 70% in one written exam, overall examination failure occurs even if composite score is acceptable. And remember, certifications do not automatically transfer when companies change ownership. The new employer must certify personnel under their own program. Before your examination, revise all these important concepts carefully, especially recommended practice versus code, training versus experience, calibration versus standardization, employer versus Level 3 responsibilities, passing grades, vision requirements, termination and reinstatement, and certification validity. If you can confidently explain all these points, you are well prepared for Level 1, 2, and 3 examinations. Congratulations! You have now completed the Asnt Snt-Tc-1A 2024 Complete Training Module. In this session, we covered scope and purpose, definitions, NDT methods, qualification levels, written practice, training and experience, examinations, certification, recertification, mock questions, interview questions, and field applications. If this training helped you, support the channel, like the video, subscribe, share it with fellow inspectors, and comment your questions below. Your support helps create more professional NDT training content for industry professionals worldwide. The remaining slides contain advanced Level 3 MCQs, PDM examination details, and real industrial applications. These are extremely useful for shutdown inspections, vendor qualification, certification audits, and senior inspector interviews. I strongly recommend revising these sections multiple times before appearing for Level 3 examinations or refinery shutdown projects. Thank you for watching this complete Asnt Snt-Tc-1A 2024